Live. So welcome everybody to this weekly DM coordinating collective call. I am moderating today, so wait to you. And so we start as every time with the burning issues in Europe. Is anybody wanting to take the stage? You know how terrible a moderator I am.
Can I suggest, Simona, if I may, that there are many different burning issues today in Europe. So let's have a list of the things we want to discuss about Europe. The United Kingdom situation, and the Labour Party in particular, is one, but I'd rather we wait for Rosemary to join before we get stuck into it. COVID-19 is another, generally lockdown measures and so on. And let's look at it not in a journalistic kind of way, but let's look at the politics of it.
I would also like for us to discuss briefly France's stance with the latest terrorist attacks and so on, and the harder line that Macron is taking.
And with Erdogan and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the French-Turkish Muslim relationship. I think that those are three good issues to begin with. Okay. Simona, back to you.
Am I supposed to say something about COVID? Yeah. So, well, this second wave was unexpected by all governments, and the lack of preparedness on this exposed all the contradictions of our health systems and of our social systems. The burning issue is we know COVID is a syndemic, like the Lancet says. It means okay, it's a virus. It hits everybody, but it hits mostly poor people and those who have chronic diseases, which are mostly spread among poor people, like diabetes, overweight, and so on. And in this is a classist virus, and those who are most at risk for it are also those who can't protect themselves, who are obliged to go to work and to travel in public transports, and who can't be self-protect themselves. Faced to it, most European governments are taking measures that just block the useless activities like being together, go to a restaurant, and so on, while not tackling the issue of workplaces, unsafe workplaces, unsafe transports, and the other big issue with this is that we privatized even the track and trace system. The tracing, the check of the condition of infection for people has been demanded to private agents. It's something you paid for for the whole summer, and the public health system tracking and trace was not enough developed to face a new wave. And this engendered the situation we are facing now. We must have an European system for track and tracing, and we must have sustain for local communities and for people who need to stay home and protect themselves. If somebody who's infected has no revenue when he is obliged to stay home, they will not stay home and they will spread the virus, or they will stay home and starve. It's hypocritical to take any measure that tackles just restaurants and fun, and doesn't tackle the major issue of people needing to work, needing to take risks to survive. We are preparing a statement on this, just as we prepared as a feminist task force a statement on another burning issue that is the situation in Poland with abortion and with women fighting for their human right about their body and their reproductive life, being attacked and condemned by the government just for protesting. Please read our statement because it's quite clear, and let's take action on these two burning issues. I can't see hands asking for the stage. Is anybody?
Yes, may I add something, please?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, Simona. Thank you. Concerning the COVID-19 situation right now, we are approaching more or less around Europe a new sort of incoming restriction, more or less everywhere. But the one of the reflection we should do at the moment is this partial lockdown, or probably a total one, is not more good as soon as we have a clear idea of the post-lockdown. I mean, we already have seen that a total lockdown didn't work without a good after-lockdown plan. So I would like to focus also in that direction our attention. Maybe it works.
Yeah, it was clear for anybody knowing something about epidemiology that the lockdowns weren't to stop the epidemic. They can't stop an epidemic of this kind of virus, which has few or no symptoms when it's contagious, and which is not severe in most cases. So everybody knew that the lockdowns were just to stop health services to collapse and to slow down the spread of the virus. We didn't, governments didn't take advantage of the slowing down of the spreading to do what had to be done. That was test everybody and focus on the places where the virus can spread. But the way Ebola was almost eradicated in Africa is exactly involve communities, test everybody who got in touch with the virus, and trace everybody who get in touch with somebody who was infected. And this is the only thing that can be done, and we didn't take advantage of summer for doing this. Now, the only thing that can be done is other lockdowns, but this time, yes, you're right, we need a serious post-lockdown plan. Anybody else?
It's a blue hand, Simona.
Yanis, please.
Thank you, Simona. Shifting the debate onto the politics of the European Union from a DM perspective. What is clear now is that the second phase, which was utterly predictable, everybody predicted it really. They didn't prepare it for it. Everybody predicted it. Nobody prepared for it. It's doing two things. Firstly, it is giving a new boost to the same old clash between the authoritarian establishment and the authoritarian ultra-right. The ultra-right now has a new rallying call. It adopts a libertarian freedom from statism line. It's a new boost for the Le Pens and the Salvini. Salvini is having a field day in Italy, from what I see, behind freedom. Freedom from the state's overreach. And the fact that there is an overreach and there are incredible inconsistencies. You know, you can be in an aeroplane with 300 people, but you can't be in a theater with 20, gives them credence. And at the same time, right, the likes of the Macrons and the Merkels and so on also get strengthened. The more powerful the argument of the ultra-right, the stronger the authoritarians are of the radical center. So put it from the perspective of DM. COVID-19 is doing two things at once. It is reinforcing the reasons why we exist as a movement, yeah, and at the same time it makes our life harder. Because again, when you have these two polar opposites, which are in the end working together, the radical center, the establishment on the one hand, and the libertarian right on the other, or xenophobic stroke libertarian right on the other, our voice doesn't get heard. It's much harder for us to get heard. So yet again, we have the same situation. The more relevant our message is, the harder it is to put it across. And this is something that we have to take into consideration as a movement.
Eric, please.
Very briefly, because we've spoken on this quite long now, but I'd also like to very precisely point out a worrying sort of continuation of this particular crisis, or let's say a side effect of it, which is quite often in times of extreme social turmoil, and that is the fact that having a nuanced, balanced position in the political debate becomes extremely difficult. So right now, for example, if you look at the type of demonstrations that you see around Europe on COVID, it's a very weird amalgamation of different kind of political forces. You have anti-vaxxers together with the radical left, who are opposed to the creeping authoritarianism of the state and often, conservative governments, to a lot of conspiracy theorists who are mixing up, the real threat of COVID as a disease and as a virus with the fact that a lot of companies are taking this opportunity, as companies often do in times of crisis, to benefit from it financially. Therefore, mixing up different theories about where the virus came from and really obfuscating the question. So I think it's extremely important to have a kind of, because the debate has become so muddled, it's incredibly important for whatever that message that anyone puts across, for it to be very simple and straight to the point. It really needs to cut across all of these kinds of obfuscations, like I said, and really drive the message home. Yeah, just that. We could go on less for ages, but we've already spoken quite a bit.
Beryl?
For example, do we know what is happening to the Syrian refugees in Turkey, which is almost 3 or 4 million? We know nothing about it. It isn't mentioned at all. When the Minister of Health is speaking every evening, he doesn't mention what happens to these refugees who live in the tents southeast of Turkey or in the cities, but it isn't mentioned at all. And even in Syria, for example, in the war zone, what is happening there? We don't know. So it is really dangerous. And today it was the 97th anniversary of the foundation of the Republic of Turkey. And all the outside ceremonies were restricted. Only the parliament and the MPs and Mr. President and all the party leaders went to Atatürk's what do you call it? Okay, so there was a ceremony only with these people, but for example, in the Kadıköy side, in the Asian side of Istanbul, there were huge demonstrations against the restriction with cars and with motorcycles. The whole day, people with flags and etc. Made big demonstrations.
Yeah, we had a big demonstration in Naples, southern Italy, and the government and leftist, central leftist newspapers said it was mafia and Camorra promoting it. But as far as my comrades from Naples said, it was rather people that have lost their job and that cannot make a life couldn't make a life if we have a new lockdown. The problem is people are obliged to stay home, but they have no subsidy, no rent, nothing to live on. And this is the reasons of freedom taken by far left that is hilarious, are important, but are a way for people to express their distress in being obliged to stay home without any form of safety for their economic life. we have evictions, people losing their jobs, and for adults and young people, it is more important to live, to have something to live on than to protect themselves. Yes, we should move to the next topic, but Rosemary is still not there. So shall we talk about France? And okay, who wants the stage? Oh, can't see.
I can very briefly speak since I put it on the agenda. So essentially, the topic here to discuss is the stance that Macron's France has taken vis-a-vis sort of Islamofascism, as they're now popularly calling it. Essentially presenting themselves as the continuation of the Enlightenment and free speech and whatnot, with the irony being that the people that are cheering them on in this kind of crusade for supposedly free speech are the same people who are also cheering them on with the increasing authoritarian measures that the French government is taking in order to supposedly limit the spread of COVID and so on. So Macron with these moves is really solidifying the support of the right, conservative right, and to a certain extent the far right, possibly in preparation for the French elections in 2 years, and the main opponent that he already expects he will have for those. And it's also the same kind of path that he carved out for himself with his position vis-a-vis Turkey and Erdogan's sort of approach to the clash with Greece and Cyprus for in the southeast Mediterranean. So I thought maybe we could talk a bit more about that. I'd really like to hear also Beral's opinion from perspective from Turkey on this.
Yeah. Paola's text was very explanatory about what is really happening, because it's a very complex issue. And I think it is a game between Macron and Tayyip Erdogan, just for their internal election visions. And so they are really fighting with each other in a very low way. But you can read Paola's text. It really explains the situation, and I have sent them many journalists' essays about the complex conflict between France and Turkey. What happened here is for example, Turkish main opposition Republican People's Party, CHP leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu has urged that the First Lady Emine Erdoğan should burn her Hermes bags in the garden of the palace, because she is always appearing when she is in the ceremonies, etc., or traveling. She has this crocodile Hermes bag, which is $50,000 or something. So, and Mr. Erdogan said, boycott all the French goods, don't buy any French trademarks, etc. So Kılıçdaroğlu said, why don't your wife burn her bag in the garden of the palace? And of course, this was another conflict between the opposition party and AKP. And what happened is this bag became a trending topic in the Twitter since 5 days or something. And of course, Mr. Erdogan has, a few days ago, Mr. Erdogan has said to the people when he was making a big appearance in front of a big crowd, against the rules of corona rules. He said to a person there who asked him, how am I going to live? I have no money, I am jobless. He said, you are exaggerating. And he threw tea packages for him to eat. Have these tea packages, and so what happened is, again, the CHP leader also said people cannot buy bread. How can they boycott French goods? A perfume costs thousands of Turkish lira. How can they pay? So what are you speaking about this boycott? He said. This is the level of the conflict, and really we are really looking to it with amazement. What can I say?
Beral, may I ask you? Oh, sorry, Yanis, go first, and then I have a question for Beral as well.
Thank you. Okay, two winners out of this, and one great loser. The two winners are Macron and Erdogan. Both got strengthened. Just like before when we were talking about COVID-19, both the ultra-right and the radical center. So the two combatants benefit, and the great loser, of course, is humanism and internationalism and solidarity and transnationalism. The Islamophobia that is being whipped up on the one hand, and the fundamentalism on the other. They are wonderful partners because both of them feed off each other. And that, I think, must be the DiEM25 line. It's consistent with everything else we do. With what we said about COVID-19, what we said about, our narrative about the United States election coming up now. We see a pattern. This pattern is repeated everywhere. And one last comment, if I may. There is one development in France, which for me is devastatingly dangerous. And that is a kind of narrative that I hadn't encountered since the Jewish question in Germany in the 1840s. Remember Marx's pamphlet on the Jewish question, in which he takes to task a number of so-called progressive Hegelians, whose argument was that the Jews must give up their Jewishness, their religion, if they can be citizens of Prussia, of Germany. And Marx turned around and said, but this profoundly, undermines the whole concept of citizenship. We have the same thing now in France. I heard on the BBC the other day, a French minister, I can't remember his name, who was, in all sincerity, arguing that if a French citizen who happens to be a Muslim does not accept the primacy of the Republic over his God or her God, they have to be expelled from the country. Now, that is the worst Republican denunciation of republicanism. And it's exactly the same argument as the one that Karl Marx on the Jewish question was lambasting. So, we are going back hundreds of years so that the dictator from Ankara and Mr. Macron, the banker in Paris, can strengthen their bases. That's the situation we're facing.
Beral, I would like to ask you if you know if there are in Turkey, in your country, our DMers or NC members who are now already in contact with all the well-organized movements in opposition with Erdogan. I mean, I know for sure, because I know personally some of them, that there are a very well-organized young situation, well-prepared intellectual, and we probably try to make a bridge with them, even in the idea to create what Yanis said the last Zoom meeting, a Mediterranean conference, because of course your country plays a key role in that way. So we should work on that direction too. And I was wondering if we are already in contact with them, or how we can do that.
Let me reply you in such a way that I can convince you that there is a strong opposition in Turkey against all the possibilities of the ruling power putting everybody into detention or whatever. So the strongest opposition is HDP party, the Kurds. They are the strongest, but on the other hand, they are continuously attacked by the ruling power. Most of the municipal mayors, elected mayors, are in jail. So, I mean, you know what is happening in Turkey. And I must say that because of this Azerbaijan-Armenia war, they now a danger for Armenian people living, I mean, native Armenian people, plus the Armenian people who are living in Istanbul because they are looking for jobs and they wanted to stay in Turkey somehow. They are now in danger because there are probably you also know about the demonstrations in Lyon. The Turkish origin people in Lyon attacked the Armenians on the streets. So, but who is in direct danger is Garo Paylan. He is the HDP MP. He is in the parliament, but he was attacked by the Center of Eurasian Strategic Studies, which is a nationalist think tank, and they were very hostile against him. So, I mean, we supported him through internet. We said, we are with you, Garo Paylan, and it was kind of this. Patricia, if there was no coronavirus this year, I was going to make a conference on Lesbos Island. I have prepared everything, but of course, because of coronavirus, we had to postpone it. So, I mean, it is possible for next, for the near future to organize this conference. Of course, my conference was not purely political, but it contained art and culture people, academicians, etc. But we chose Lesbos Island because it is the most affected island on the Aegean Sea because of this refugee crisis. And now I hear again many stories. Just yesterday, a family of 3 children and husband and wife died on the shores of Lesbos Island. So this is not anymore news here. Nobody mentions the refugee crisis anymore. Everybody forgot about what is happening in Lesbos.
Srečko, please.
Yeah, if I can jump in, I mean, these are all obviously very important questions which we have to discuss. And I can see that COVID was mentioned several times. So I would love to be very concrete and come back to a proposal which Luis made the other day, or was it today, that we really need, as the coordinating collective of DiEM25, a special meeting, which wouldn't be just this regular weekly Zoom, on the general COVID situation and our response to the general situation, because I think we don't have enough time to discuss this into much more detail and how it requires us to discuss it. And then we go in all directions. So I think we have to structure our discussion much better. And I would suggest that next week already we have a very special discussion on COVID-19 and DiEM25's response. So that's for it. I mean, there are many other burning issues, I think, of course. Maybe we should already start talking about the UK and what is happening to Jeremy Corbyn these days. I know Rosemary, unfortunately, is still not here. But I think we should address it and not wait for Rosemary anymore, because I think what's happening in the UK is definitely a burning issue.
So will you introduce the subject, or Yanis wants to?
I can. Simona, because I've been talking to people all day, as you can imagine. Comrades, to cut a long story short, I have a proposal. I will explain a little bit more what this proposal is, but first I want to put forward, I sat down just before our meeting and wrote a communique that a draft communique that I am proposing that the CC puts out, or something like that, right? It is just a draft now. I'm putting it to you. We can change it, edit it, whatever. But that draft will give me an opportunity to explain my position on this. I assume you all know the news, right? You know what happened. There was this ongoing investigation regarding anti-Semitism in the Labour Party and the role that Jeremy Corbyn played. It's been going on for a very long time. It played a very significant role in Corbyn losing the election in December 2019, and therefore have effectively overthrowing the Corbynistas, even though they were a majority in the party. Now this report is coming out. I read the report. It is neither here nor there. They tried to squeeze a huge case out of absolutely nothing. The worst you can accuse Corbyn's leadership team was of trying to contain a case and accusations that had taken disproportionate dimensions. But in any case, let me just read out what I propose as a draft communique. DiEM25 interprets the decision of the current Labour Party leadership. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say the most important thing since I was conveying the news to you. So the report came out, and Keir Starmer, the new leader, has suspended, effectively, has frozen the membership of Jeremy Corbyn. Now that never happens in any political party. It never happens that the new leader effectively excises or gets rid of the previous leader, especially when the previous leader was supported by a very large majority of the membership. So this is what has happened. Effectively, they are purging Corbyn and the Corbynistas. Okay, so here's my proposal. DiEM25 interprets the decision of the current Labour Party leadership as a cynical attempt to utilize baseless accusations against Jeremy Corbyn in order to purge the Labour Party. Purge the Labour Party of whom? Of any force capable of turning the Labour Party, as Jeremy did between 2015 and 2019, into a serious threat to the oligarchy's hold over power. In view of this McCarthyite purge, DiEM25 recognizes that progressive voices within the Labour Party despair at this development, some going so far as to question the utility of remaining in a Labour Party given A, the concerted smear campaign by its nomenclatura to undermine Corbyn in the 2017 and 2019 elections, and B, the current leadership's purge of those who, beginning with Jeremy Corbyn, worked towards policies and a manifesto that threatened the privileged. At this juncture, DiEM25 is calling upon Britain's progressives, those inside but also outside the Labour Party, to urgent consultations regarding the future of progressive politics in the UK. Soon, DiEM25 shall announce an initiative to bring these voices together to take stock and plan ahead. So this is my proposal. The essence of it is, I'm not even going to discuss anti-Semitism. It's a red herring. It is simply a smear campaign. I don't think we should even go there. Because what really matters, if it wasn't that, they would have accused him of being an extraterrestrial, of having children for breakfast, you know. There is no end to their imagination regarding ways of smearing a progressive. We know that he's not an anti-Semite. We know that he is the most anti-racist person ever to have joined the Labour Party in the last 100 years. So it's clear what's happening. The establishment within the Labour Party tried to overthrow him. In 2017, they failed because he did really very well. He got 40% of the vote. And then they tried again with anti-Semitism, and that led to, together with Brexit, which Keir Starmer was responsible for effectively pushing Jeremy towards a Brexit position that was untenable and idiotic. He loses the leadership, even though most of the members were supporting him. He resigns, Keir Starmer wins, and now there's a purge. And the purge is happening for a very simple reason, as I say in my draft communique. The purge is simply happening so that the Labour Party never becomes again a possible vehicle for progressive politics, in the same way that the National Democratic Committee in the United States did all they could in order to defang and get rid of Bernie Sanders. As we speak, there are comrades of ours, people that we have worked with, some of us, from the Labour Party, who are seriously considering leaving the Labour Party. There's a petition that is going to be put together. I'm not saying this is the right choice, but what I'm saying, as you heard from the communique, is that there are people who've had enough, who cannot fathom anymore continuing to work within this Labour Party. There are people in the Green Party who are talking to them, in the Greens. There are people who are in either party. DiEM25 is uniquely placed, as we speak, to be the infrastructure that creates a dialogue between those comrades, those progressives. So I think we should go all out in the next few days, not weeks, days, to bring these people together. Those who want to leave the Labour Party, those who can't contemplate leaving the Labour Party, but who are despairing within the Labour Party, Greens, socialists who are free-floating, and so on. We'll do it through a Zoom, right? Teleconference, we can't get together. But I think we should dedicate significant resources as DiEM. And it will be fantastic to show that, you know, it's the Democracy in Europe movement that is doing this in Britain, the transnational component coming back in. We don't recognize Brexit. We don't give a damn that Britain is out of the EU. DiEM is reactivating in the UK. That's why it was important that Rosemary should be here today instead of being in these discussions about mediating between DMers. I've had enough of this. There is real politics to be done here. So this is my proposal. Let me tell you, if it's live stream, it doesn't matter. On Friday or Monday, I'm not sure. In the next few days, I'm having a Zoom with the leadership of the Green Party, who want to talk. The reason why I'm talking to them is because there are many people in the Labour Party that want to talk to them. It's easier if I talk to them. So, playing go between progressives in the Labour Party and progressives in the Green Party. I think this is what DM should do. We should become, in the UK, the platform where progressives meet to discuss. We just offer them the DM platform, which is neutral for them. It's not Momentum, it's not the Labour Party, it's not a splinter of the Labour Party, it's not the Socialist Workers' Party, it's not the Green Party. We are DM, so we can offer them leavers and Remainers, Labour and non-Labour, Greens and not Greens, offer them a platform in which to have this discussion.
Eric, please.
I cannot even begin to describe how excited I am about this. It is exactly what Britain has needed for years. If you look at what Labour had been before Corbyn, the centre leftist Coca-Cola light to the Conservatives Coca-Cola, Labour should have gone the way the Social Democrats went in the rest of Europe. They should have been sort of, left to the margins of politics, scratching for percentages here and there. And instead, because of first past the post and this two-party system in this country, there's still, the alternative, even though they do not really represent an alternative in the minds of many people. And a lot of the extreme feeling that has been created before Brexit, through Brexit, up until this point, comes from the fact that people don't feel politically represented in that country and have even fallen to apathy or to sort of quite extreme expressions of their political frustration. And an alternative political force to break this deadlock, even in a two-party system, even in first past the post, is exactly what Britain needs right now. And I totally agree that because of where Britain is right now historically, after Brexit, that DM and what DM stands for and what DM has fought for to this point, and the context that we've had with the Corbyn, with the Corbynistas, really places us in the perfect sort of spot to facilitate this, or at the very least contribute to it. We have some really, really good things to offer to something new that could be developed in that country. And as somebody who's lived there a few years and really bleeds for that country and what has become of it, I'm extremely excited about this eventuality. I really am. It sounds great.
Yeah, DM is what all countries of Europe sorely need, not just UK, but this is well, there's hope for UK in this moment. Anybody wants the stage? I cannot see any hands. So maybe we should go to the next point. That is
before I think we need to have I proposed a communique.
Yeah.
I can send it to all of you and see if you agree, but we also need to put resources into this. If we're going to do this, we need to put resources into this. There has to be, woman power and manpower behind organizing this, conference, call it whatever you want. So I think we need to reach a decision now. If this is something we want, I put it forward. And, David, can you comment as well? Because you are in England, you are in London. You are the only one who's in London. I'd like you to comment on what you heard as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea, mostly because I think that, if not us, who is going to lead that kind of reconciliation process? So I'd like to work with you on this, Giannis, on the proposal and how to take it forward. I think that there is a sort of blessing in disguise of this process, in that the status of the Labour left, or the spirit of the Labour left that had been given this pride of place in the Corbyn project has been so deflated. It's been sucked of all of its confidence since this landslide victory for the Tories a year ago. And now what this has done is it's really clarified the position of the of this Starmer-led party. I mean, Yanis, I can remember you and I having lots of conversations on the eve of Starmer's well-funded coronation about what kind of place the left would have and how much that Corbyn project would succeed to survive within the context of this new Labour Party. And that's been incredibly vague. And there's been huge kind of proxy fights with Paul Mason and other people about what kind of role Labour activists were going to have or should have in that project. And now that has become entirely clear, and all that latent tension has become manifest. I think that there is a real opportunity for us to, play a role publicly and lead a kind of process that could do the work that you and I have been talking about doing, and we've been wanting to do in the UK for a long time. So I think that's hopeful, but we're going to see a bit how the chips fall. I think the statement that you were talking about before, Yanis, makes a lot of sense.
Shall we decide now? For my part, I totally agree on the project, or shall we decide by email afterwards?
Yeah, if I may jump in, I also fully agree, and I think the communique is great. But since Rosemary and some others are not here, I would suggest that Yanis sends it per email, and then we make a decision with everyone. And I think the crucial thing is to connect with our members in the UK and to have an organizer on ground to organize this. I mean, luckily everything is digital, so it's not national based, but obviously we would also need to talk to people from Labour and so on, and involve and Greens and many others. So I suggest that the next step is that Yanis sends it per email, and then we take it from there. And maybe if we need an internal deadline, but as Yanis said, we need to put resources into it as well.
Yeah, and I think, Yanis, it might be worth us having another conversation offline, because I think that there's room for us to have some preliminary conversations with all the friends and contacts we have in the UK to see, who are here to say, how can we best fit this as a puzzle piece into the kind of messy picture of how everything else is being rearranged. I'm mixing metaphors here, but a lot of stuff is happening, and I'm sure we can fit it in more effectively.
Okay, done.
Okay. Next point is, sorry, I lost my notes. I think it's my proposal about making alliances or cooperation with various movements in Europe or in national countries. My proposal started from an episode of Extinction Rebellion making a demonstration against an Italian oil company and against the fact that our government used recovery fund financing to fund this oil company instead of oh, hello, Rosemary. We just stopped talking about the UK project. We decided to that Yanis will share his proposal by email, and will complete the discussion by there. Okay. So what was I saying? So my first proposal was about Extinction Rebellion, and I suggested to join their protest against this Italian oil company, and in general to join protests when we agree on the basics, even if we don't obviously join everything a movement or an organization says or does. My second proposal was about signing and asking our members to sign the petition under the ECI, European ECI scheme about basic income. This is a proposal launched by Basic Income Network, and we usually are wary of getting in such establishment proposals like European ACI, but this one could be a good way to make our point about universal dividend known. And in this COVID situation, basic income is more needed than ever. So my suggestions were about joining the two proposals, and well, and in general about making cooperation with other movements when we agree on their actions. Anyone wants the stage about it? Can't see anybody. You all think it's a wonderful proposal and you totally agree with me? Or it's, oh, okay. Thank you, Ivana.
Just briefly, because this is something that we've been basically doing for a long time, supporting various actions or petitions or other movements when we are in line with the ideas. And because you were specifically mentioning Extinction Rebellion, I don't know so much about it because we don't have a franchise in Serbia. But as far as I understood, the way that they're being organized, it's very, very locally. So it's only if members from, I don't know, Rome can connect with Extinction Rebellion in Rome, that then they can collaborate, because they're very differently organized in different countries, even towns. So I don't think that there is much that we can decide or do from the coordinating collective, but we can leave it to our members to self-organize on the grassroots level. Thank you.
Yes, somebody on YouTube said that in the UK, Extinction Rebellion is very inflammatory, and there are different positions actually. In Italy, it's maybe something very different, and they are quite good there. But yes, you are right, it's a local issue. And what about the basic income petition? Do we have a position about it? Shrechko, please.
Yeah, I can jump in. Well, I have a very strong position on it, to be honest, and it might sound as a surprise, but I'm not really the biggest supporter of universal basic income, as you know. Why? Because I think that DiEM25 has a much better proposal than the universal basic income. I think that the universal basic income has serious problems when it comes to emancipatory and left politics. So my question is, you know, and I'm very suspicious about petitions. We've done so many petitions in the last 4 years that it's like, when I hear petition, I jump for a gun. So my question is, how do you, because you, Simona, said that you think that by supporting this petition, we might actually put forward our proposal, which is quite different from the universal basic income. Although, of course, there are some similarities, and the similarity is that each citizen in Europe and in the world would need a basic income. We call it a dividend because it doesn't come from taxation. So my question is, you know, if this is a petition which is already fully fledged, if it is already written down and so on, how exactly could DiEM differentiate from it and show that we have something what we ourselves perceive as something which is much more progressive than a plan which is now actually being adopted also by the liberal center, if you want. So that's my question. I'm not fully against it, but my question is, how can we as DM then put forward our own version, which is, well, more progressed than this one?
I think the first thing is to have the issue of an income for everybody on stage, on the agenda, on the political agenda. And when this is something that is discussed, that people talks about, when the answer to the hypothesis of a new lockdown is not running on the streets saying we want to be free, but is asking for safety for one's for people's food and having a roof on their head, that is not so evident in Italy or in Greece. In Italy, we have no form of guarantee if you are unemployed, nothing. And this is obviously very, very good for mafia and for political parties, because instead of a right to an income, you have favor from the mafia or from the politician that asks your vote in change. So this is a very important issue in this moment. I think it's crucial, and it should be the first point in the political agenda. And when it's the first point in the political agenda, we can discuss the way it's financed. We can show how it's related to the rest of our proposals, of our vision, how it's connected with all the other issues like health, safety, education, free education, and so on and so on. But when people focus on I'm unemployed instead of I have the right to live even if I'm unemployed, it's more difficult to go in the specific about how to finance it. That's why I think we should promote this issue with every mean necessary. And of course, we are different from Basic Income Network or other movements. Our proposal is more comprehensive and strong, but in my opinion, we should make alliances on single issues and promote them and our position inside them.
Anyone else?
Yanis has his hand up.
Yeah, Yanis.
Okay. I'm quite happy with the idea of single issue special coalitions with different movements, as long as they fit in with our overall progressive agenda for Europe. On the question of the universal basic income, taking a thread from what Sergio said, look, it's very important that we guide these kids, because they they like the idea. Who doesn't? I'm all in favor of universal basic payment to everyone. But what really does matter, and this is something that we as DM have been very strong about, and we've been pointing out for years now, is that it matters who pays for it, where the money is coming from. Because if you tell a blue-collar worker who is struggling to put food on the table that she or he is going to be taxed so that a rich person can get a universal payment, a basic payment, or somebody doesn't want to work or whatever, okay, then we're in trouble because it's not going to and we are going to just, create divisions. This is when COVID-19 hit, the three-step plan, which had something to do with, was very clear. The ECB should print the money. So if it's a question of, if the basic payment comes out of, money that the central bank prints, that's fine. That is fine. Central banks print trillions all the time, and they give it to the bankers. I want it to be given to, as a universal basic dividend, we can call it, societal dividend. But even better, remember our policy in the European Green New Deal, where we take a chunk of shares from large corporations and put them in a social equity fund, and the dividends that accumulate, then go to people on the basis that all of us are contributing to the capital of the large corporations simply by breathing, existing, thinking, paying taxes for decades. So I think do the Extinction Rebellion folks want to have this discussion? Because if they simply want to say our tax and give it to, give €1,000 to every citizen, we cannot support that. We have to, have a discussion with them. And I have not had any relationship or even conversation with people from Extinction Rebellion. Others have. I know that David Adler has had discussions with them. Others have had discussions with them. So I cannot judge the receptiveness of these people to serious policy-based discussions. If they are receptive and we can move the needle in their head through our discussions with them, yes, let's have a common action. But if they just want DM25, the logo, to go along with them without having a discussion with us, without shifting pushing the needle of their policy thinking, if there is such a thing, then I don't think we want that. We do not want to be just an addendum to what the Extinction Rebellion do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it was useful to set the frame for it anyway. The last live streamed point of today's meeting is presented by Eric. It's about a questionnaire and citizens' assemblies, but Eric can explain better than me. Please, Eric, go ahead.
I was hoping to have more time to spend on this, just to laud our amazing volunteers and the incredible work that they've done on this, which Mike agrees with. The questionnaire project. So they were calling this, the working title is the National Programs and Citizen Engagement Project, or People's Gatherings, whichever one you prefer. And we've had 600 responses so far. And based on those responses from 48 different countries, we've been able to create, almost finalized, 11 questionnaires. These questionnaires are lists of questions for 11 different countries based on the feedback that we received from members on those countries, to questions that they were asked about what are the most pressing issues that they're facing in their country. So essentially what those questionnaires are the questions that are the hottest topics, let's say, in different countries where DM25 is engaged and active. Those 11 questionnaires are now being finalized by us at the CC and will soon be ready to be sent out to our members in those countries, together with a kit explaining to those who are interested how they can get engaged and start organizing meetings. I mean, right now, considering the issue of the pandemic, most of those meetings will have to happen online, and there is a section of that manual helping people come up with interesting and exciting ideas about how to organize those meetings online, to start answering some of those questions, not just with fellow DMers, but in general with citizens, with people from their neighborhood, from their city, from their country. And we also have some ideas in there about how you could reach out and get people from outside your bubble to participate and help us answer those questions. And based on the answers we will get to these questionnaires, we will start developing national programs for DM everywhere where we're active that can be used as a sort of bedrock, as a foundation for the work that we'll be doing. We discussed this briefly before the summer when the project was first floated and agreed on. And this is just to let people know that there is a lot of interest. We have 400 people volunteering for it right now, and really coordinating them is a job in and of itself. We're trying to create teams of volunteers to coordinate the volunteers, to just give you an idea of the scale, which is a good problem to have, to be honest. And hopefully as of next month, we can start really getting the project out there, and not just an internal DM thing, but really push it outwards. So it's quite exciting. There is a more detailed update on this in the forum for our members. So if you're interested, please go to the forum and check it out there. I was going to do it live here, but we're running out of time. So you might as well go there and check that out. And of course, I think this is a good opportunity. If any of you have any questions about next steps, this would be the time to ask, and we can have a brief conversation about where we're going with this. One last point, we are hoping to, we promised, we're not hoping, we promised that we'd have an all-member vote for this project, given that it will take up quite a few of the movement's sort of focus and resources and man-woman power. So there will be an all-member vote on this in the next couple of weeks, hopefully, to make sure that the entire membership is behind this and it becomes validated as a DM25 project and priority, developing these national programs through this process and engaging our members with society more broadly. So that's it from me. Any questions, I'm totally open to them. And please check out the post on the forum.
Beral, please.
Eric, can we use these questionnaires for Turkey too? I mean, we really need some kind of...
Right. So the thing, Beral, with Turkey is that we have three groups of countries. The first group of countries are the 11 countries that we've managed to almost finalize the questionnaires for, which will then be out of our way and free up the space to start working on new questionnaires. And Turkey is part of the second batch of countries where we're hoping to start working on the questionnaire soon. The reason why it wasn't a priority country was because we didn't get enough feedback for it. We got something like 10 responses, and that's not enough to base a questionnaire on. So we will now organize a second push, probably in Turkish, translated in Turkish as well, not just in English, to make sure we get more feedback. And when we have more feedback, then we will create the questionnaire. So as soon as these 11 are out of the way, there's another 14 countries that are coming up, like Austria, like Croatia, like Turkey, which didn't have enough responses. And Turkey will be one of them. So hopefully in the next month, we will have a questionnaire for Turkey.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. If nobody else wants to the stage, we have a quick announcement about candidates for GNDA and the DM25 voice coordination. And as for our actions, let's not forget that next Monday at 9 p.m. we have a call for the rent strike campaign. It's in your inboxes as DSC coordinators, and I will have an announcement about it in a few hours. Please, Johannes, can you tell us about the GNDA and the invoice coordination?
Yes, thank you. Just very, very briefly, just to announce to the audience that we are hiring at the moment and searching for 2 positions currently. One is the Green New Deal for Europe campaign coordinator position. So to bring our campaign for Europe for just transition and the blueprint that has already been extensively developed and is a core policy for DiEM25, to bring that forward and to bring that into action in Europe. This is the first position, and the other one is the DiEM Voice Coordinator, and DiEM Voice being the artistic platform of DiEM25. For those 2 things, we're searching you, and we await your applications at volunteer@diem25.org. David was also so kind to post that already in the chat, and we look forward to hear from you at volunteer@diem25.org. We can answer any questions and give any details. Thanks.
Okay. So this is the end of the live streamed part of our meeting. Nice to meet you like every week, and let's meet you next week on Thursday at 9.